What factors influence the support of minority groups in Canada? Homework 5, Elaboration and Hierarchical Regression. My research question was, what factors influence the attitude towards minority groups in Canada? I used a CS 2012 dataset, and my independent variables that I chose were education, party alignment, political leaning. The analytical approach I took is I put my dependent variable into an index, and I used Chromux alpha correlation analysis, multivariate regression analysis, and hierarchical regression with a control variable. My first hypothesis was people who have a higher level education are more likely to support minority groups. The second, people who are liberal are more likely to agree with affirmative action policies and support minority groups. And the more leftist a person is, the more likely they will support equality and elimination of discrimination. Literature and rationale. Canada is a very diverse country, and thus a lot of problems come with this diversity. George Crowder argues that diversity is best accommodated by liberalism, as it encourages tolerance and provides minority groups with effective support. Higher education has been shown to reduce prejudice in people, increasing intergroup tolerance, as well as giving a person an ability to detect prejudice and reject it. Political leftism, as argued by Mackay, has been a big part of Canadian history with its social liberal institutions such as our healthcare system. The reliability analysis of my dependent variable shows a Chromebook alpha score of 0.8133 and a standardized alpha of 0.8169. This demonstrates that the variables I used for my index are related. Frequency distribution of my index shows that 63% of people, which is a very high number, support minority group rights, and only 7.3 do not support. The mean is 2.5, which shows that the data is leaning towards the support for minority groups. Correlation analysis, Pearson's R. By looking at the correlation matrix, one can tell that the correlation analysis is very weak between education, liberalism, and leftism. The Pearson's R for education is 0.14. That means about 2% of the variation in the independent variables can be explained. Multiple regression shows b-values for education, liberalism, and leftism being quite low, with education leading at a 0.068. The R-square is 0.006 and adjusted R negative 0.007. These are all very low values, and the low values suggest there may not be a very strong relationship, if one at all. My fourth hypothesis is that people living in the prairie provinces are less diverse than the large coastal cities and central provinces because of ethnic minorities concentrating in big cities. The hypothesis says that the result will be specification, and the rationale is that people who live in rural areas such as small towns as opposed to large cities are less likely to be supportive of minority groups because the rural populations are less exposed to minority groups, which are usually located in populated cities. In the correlation matrix with the control variable, the magnitude of association for Pearson's R for the independent variables are all very weak, again with the exception of education, which is stronger than the rest, with a Pearson R value of 0.1431. This data is thus not useful for answering the research question of whether minority groups. Therefore, this data is not useful in answering the question of what factors influence minority groups' acceptance in Canada. The multiple regression analysis with the control variable shows that once the controls were introduced for the region of the country, education increased from 0.68 to 0.068 to 0.073, while liberalism and leftism decreased. While liberalism and leftism's beta values have decreased significantly. Using the rule of thirds,
it can be seen that the beta values for liberalism and leftism are significantly lower than they were. And this